Unbeknownst to them, I was struggling with fertility. So I was actually trying to get pregnant, and having these people accuse me of these things while I was dealing with infertility was horrible. And welcome to another video. So I'm gonna have more of a kind of a more laid-back chit-chat video, and we're gonna be talking about being childless and struggling with infertility. So if this is something that is triggering for you and it's kind of a troublesome topic for you to talk about or to deal with, this probably isn't the video for you, because I'm going to be going in depth about childlessness, infertility, and my feelings and my journey and my struggles with it. But I'm going to be sharing a little bit more about the time in my life where I was bullied for being childless and my infertility struggles that I was going through at the time. And I want to kind of unpack a lot of the misconceptions, the accusations, and the judgments regarding women who are either childless, not by choice, who are childless by choice, or women who just don't want to validate their fertility journey with co-workers, strangers, or family members because they would rather keep it personal and private. So I kind of wanted to talk about some of the labels and accusations that I had hurled at me during that time, and even since then I've had hurled at me, and hopes that maybe if you're going through the same thing and you have a journey similar to mine, that you can become inspired to speak up for yourself and to let others know that you have boundaries and that it's not okay to judge and accuse and shame someone for their choices, especially when these choices do not have a direct impact on their everyday life. So let's jump into the video. So to give some context to this story, I had shared on Instagram that in my early or mid-20s, when I was a newlywed and I was working at this place, I would always have people, primarily women, that would pressure me about when I was going to have children and when I was going to start making babies and when I was getting pregnant and so on and so forth. And I'm a very private and a very personal person when it comes to a lot of things in my life, and my fertility journey is something that I've always felt like it's private and personal, and it's nobody's business because they're not the person that I'm going to be conceiving with or making a baby with. They're not going to be responsible. So I felt mortified that people were asking me such an intensely personal question. And furthermore, underneath that, this story has so many nuances and levels, but underneath all of that, we were actually trying to conceive and trying to get pregnant. So I didn't necessarily want to tell people that we were trying to get pregnant, just because I knew that infertility was a real thing and that I didn't know if I was going to be able to get pregnant. I didn't know that if I got pregnant, would I miscarry? I didn't know. I understood back then that those were real realities, and I didn't want to put that pressure on myself, and I didn't want to put my personal private information out there until it was something that was concrete and that I was ready to discuss and I was ready to share. So my way to kind of combat and to navigate and steer away from those questions was, I would always say, you know what, I don't even know if we're going to have a baby. I don't know if we're going to have kids. I don't know how I feel about being a mother. I don't know how I feel about being a parent. It may or it may not happen. And for whatever reason, when I would give this answer, it frustrated people. It triggered them in some kind of strange way, and they would say the weirdest craziest things, and they would accuse me of the weirdest stuff and label and level the weirdest things at me. One of the biggest accusations and misconceptions that I would get was the fact that whenever I would say that I'm choosing to be childless or that I might end up being childless, I was always labeled as being selfish and irresponsible, which to this day, I honestly can't understand how making the choice to not have a child is selfish and irresponsible. Like, yeah, I'm 35 going on 36 and I still don't get that. But for whatever reason, I would get labeled a lot by other women as, oh, you're completely selfish, or that's irresponsible. And let me tell you what's wrong with that statement. The fact that you're saying that it's selfish and irresponsible in itself is bewildering. How is making the choice, if you know that you are not ready emotionally, mentally, financially, whatever, to be a parent, a selfish or irresponsible thing? It's actually the antithesis of that. It's actually very responsible, and you're actually thinking and putting the needs of an unborn child first, because you know that you're not ready, you know that you don't have the capacity or the energy or the money or whatever the case may be to properly parent and care for a child. I think that that's pretty responsible, and I think that that's pretty not selfish. The second thing people would always tell me is that
you're gonna miss out on so much if you don't have children. You're gonna miss out, and there's gonna be this void in your life. I'm like, what are you gonna do with your life?
And honestly, I can tell you at 35 going on 36 and not having kids, I don't feel like I've missed out on anything. While there was a period of time in my life when I was trying and I did want to have children, and I did feel like, oh, I'm gonna miss out, I can honestly tell you I don't really. Even then, it's like I have so much freedom. I'm able to chase and pursue and do the things that I want to do. I don't have to worry about a child and put their interests first. I can enjoy my marriage, and we can just do whatever we want to do. We can travel where we want to travel. We can go where we want to go. I mean, as weird and as silly as it sounds, I have the freedom to walk around naked in my house if I want to. Like, I have so much freedom and liberty as a woman that does not have children. I can pursue my dreams. I can pursue my goals. I can put my energy into so many different projects. I can get involved in things that I'm passionate about and that I care about, which if I had a child, my life would really revolve around that child, and I would be giving up a lot of my dreams, my passions, and my pursuits to be a mother. And while there's nothing wrong with that, and that is a beautiful thing, it's also something that I believe that you should fully want to do, and that you shouldn't be compelled into doing, and you shouldn't be coerced or forced into doing. And something else that I would also have leveled at me was that me either making the choice to be childless, or me kind of deciding that when it comes to fertility, I'm not going to pursue IVF, I'm not going to pursue all of these other means to get pregnant if it doesn't happen naturally. I was actually told that what I was doing was against God's will, and that I had to do everything in my power to have a baby because that was God's intention and will and purpose for me. I think that when people would accuse me of that, it was one of the most hurtful things, because if you know me, you know that I'm a woman of faith, and I take my faith and my relationship with Christ very seriously. And I think to try to hurl that accusation at a person as if you know God's heart and you know the calling that God has on someone's life, and to shame them by using their faith is horrible. Because as a follower of Christ and as a believer, I personally take everything that I'm doing in my life to God and I pray over everything and I read his word to search and find his heart about different situations. There's not one thing that I don't do that I don't consult God about and pray over. That's just who I am. And it's the same thing with having a family and having kids. And you know what? Each and every single time that I have this conversation with God, he's never ever told me that I'm disappointing him because I haven't been able to get pregnant, or that I'm disappointing him and he's disappointed in me because I'm not pursuing to get pregnant. I've never had that inclination or feeling. I think, if anything, God wants me to do what is best for me, and that also God doesn't want me to feel forced or compelled to have a child that I'm not going to love, that I'm not going to be able to give my 100% to, and that I'm not in any part ready to participate in, or I'm ready to be a parent or to be a mom. So I find that people using, my faith against me and people using my relationship with God against me really, really sick when it comes to childlessness and my decision of what I'm going to do with my fertility. Because it's a gift that God gave me to make, and not something that, I need to make based off of somebody else's opinion. Something else that people say, which is kind of weird, is that you won't have anyone to pass your legacy down to. And when they say that to me, I was always confused. Like, what do you mean legacy? Like, what am I, the Queen of England or something? But I guess what people mean when they say that you have no one to pass your legacy down to is like if you have a business, or if the wealth that you acquire or things of that nature, you won't have anybody else to pass that down to. But I don't know, I find that strange way of thinking for a couple of reasons. My understanding of when you have a child, you're giving birth to a human, and they're going to grow up and become a full-grown human and a full-grown individual with their own desires, their own dreams, their own goals, and their own wants. And that's not always going to align with my goals, my dreams, my wants, and who I think that they should be. So they may not want to partake in my legacy and continue doing what I'm doing, because they may have a different calling on their life. They may have a different passion or a different vocation. And I would rather encourage that than to try to force them to do what I want them to do, or to carry on my torch and carry on my passions. So I think that in and of itself is kind of selfish, and it's kind of a twisted way of immortalizing yourself through your child and living vicariously through them, which I think can cause a lot of tension and a lot of strain on the relationship between a parent and a child. When you do those things, it just puts a lot of unrealistic expectations and a lot of feelings and pressure on this child to do and to be, instead of allowing them the capability to discover and find out who they actually and who they really are. So the whole legacy thing, I just think it's really a selfish way to make yourself feel good about the fact that you're going to be immortal when you do leave this world. And no. Something else that I also got told a lot is, well, who's
gonna take care of you when you get old?
And here's the thing with that. If you're completely relying on your child to take care of you when you get old, I think that is also selfish, and that is irresponsible. And the reason I think that that's selfish and irresponsible is that your child is, again, a full-grown human, a full person, an individual, and they're going to have their own life. They're going to have their own family. They're going to want to do their own things. And not that I'm saying that it's bad or that you should not want to help out your parents or your family members. It's not where I'm driving at. I'm just saying it should not be assumed that just because a person is your family member or just because you have a kid that you automatically have a babysitter that's going to take care of you because you had them, and that's what their job is to take care of you. Indeed, if I really was totally scared about what's going to happen in my future, and not even that I'm scared about it, but I think this is just common sense when it comes to planning for your future, that there's so much with assisted living, with medical care, and all of these things that you can actually fund and pay for yourself and plan for and make it a part of your retirement plan, so that if you were to get sick and something was to happen, you wouldn't have to rely on anyone. You would be able to take care of yourself and make the choices as in regards to assisted living, what kind of medical care you would need, whether you needed a nurse or if you needed to go to hospice or whatever the case may be. That should be a plan that is thought out when it comes to your future planning for retirement and what's going to happen when you get into your golden years. That's not something that you or responsibility you should pass on to your child or pass on to somebody else. So a lot of these reasons I just gave, these are more of the most common things that were always leveled at me and that were always told to me, and that they will always use these reasons to guilt me or to make me feel bad because I didn't have a child or I wasn't pregnant. And like I said, unbeknownst to them, I was struggling with fertility. So I was actually trying to get pregnant, and having these people accuse me of these things while I was dealing with infertility was horrible. It was really, really horrible. My self-esteem took a hit. I felt my self-worth took a hit. It was horrible. That's why it's so important that people should not interject themselves into people's fertility journey or people's private business at all, because you don't know what happens behind closed doors, and people aren't always wanting to or willing to or should have to share their personal information with you until they are good and ready to. Just because you ask a question and you feel that you have a right to know something does not mean that you actually have that right. And furthermore, while we're at it, someone's fertility journey is not a topic of conversation. I mean, can we please stop that? It's so rude and it's so inconsiderate, because not everybody wants their reproductive journey or their fertility journey put on blast. Because there's infertility, there's PCOS, there's endometriosis, there's people that are ambivalent and they don't even know about wanting to have children, and they should be able to go through that whole process and go through the decision of whether they want to have children or not, what they're going to do in their infertility journey, how they're going to take care of their PCOS or endometriosis or adenomyosis or whatever the case may be, what fertility is going to look like for them. Maybe they're not going to be able to have kids. People should be able to go through that process and deal with those feelings and deal with those things as a unit. Okay guys, so that is all for this video. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this kind of style chit chat, you know, I tell my thoughts kind of a video. Also, leave a comment in the comment section below if you're childless or you're struggling with infertility, some of the stupid things that people say. I would love to know, because I mean, I gave you just a little condensed version, but I mean, it's just so much dumb stuff that people have said to me. We would be here all day. But I would love to know. Please share your stories and your experiences below. Also, make sure that you're subscribed to this channel so you can continue to see content similar to this. And if you haven't checked out my blog, what are you doing? Make sure that you check out my blog and read some more of the blogs and articles that I have, because I talk a lot about infertility, endometriosis, women's health, wellness, mental health, all the stuff on my blog. So make sure you are reading that or you're subscribed to my blog, so that way you can get new blogs delivered to your inbox. And until next time, have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you then. Bye.